All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. We have how many people online? 17 people. Hello to the 17 people online. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we are having a lunchtime conversation with Harsehaj Dhami.
Hello.
Yes, I think it's on. On. And Harsehaj is a 17-year-old founder. She's still in high school. Um, this is the third project that you're working on? Yes. And I met Harsehaj at Collision Fest earlier this year, and the conversation was just phenomenal. We talked for about an hour, and I was like, "You're going to have to come speak at the conference." And she was very persistent and reminded me that I said that. So I'm so happy to have you with us
Happy to be here.
and get to have a conversation with you and learn more about what you're building, what you're hoping to build, and kind of what your journey is. This conference is all about access to tech, advancing within tech, and creating queer entrepreneurs. You are encompassing many of those categories, and I'm super excited to see kind of where your future goes. And I'd love the audience to hear what that journey has been like. So to begin, I would like, much like when we talk at the Cutie Connect Cafe, where did it all begin? Tell us about your early life and what that journey has been for you.
Yeah, for sure. So, my parents immigrated to Canada from India. So, I was actually born in Canada. And growing up, I was kind of just filed into the traditional route, go through school, high school, get a job, eventually become a doctor. And I was actually interested in the health intersection, but I thought the only way to get involved in that area was to be a doctor. But I soon realized after struggling with intersectionality that accessibility gaps are a huge issue within the healthcare industry, but also within other industries as well, like education and just finance in general. And so I became more interested in a broader area of health, accessibility, and education. And from there, I decided to, okay, why don't I disrupt industries instead of just falling into them? And so there, I decided to take on a few projects that kind of stem from accessibility, and I can definitely talk more about them later on as well.
Yeah, absolutely. 17 already asking how to disrupt these not just a few consumer no, like big tech kind of problems, right? So it's impressive that your brain is even thinking about these problems in a way and not just thinking about them, but how to fix them. It's really, really intriguing. Can you tell me a little bit about like what about that accessibility gap? You mentioned wanting your parents wanting you to be a doctor, and but being liking healthcare. But what really drew you to this idea of technology and creating technology?
For sure. So, just disclaimer, so my parents don't get mad. But my I did want to be a doctor because I wanted to help people in the healthcare industry, and I realized that I could help people like myself because growing up I struggled with accessibility gaps mainly because I was struggling with the intersections of being queer South Asian woman, and I was kind of sidelined from a lot of computer science and robotics opportunities growing up, especially in elementary school. Not only that, just even within soccer tryouts, I was never able to become a captain just because I was South Asian. And so I realized that I'm not the only one struggling with these problems. And this was mainly because I interned at a health tech startup based out of San Francisco. They're in stealth right now. And essentially, what we were trying to do is bridge accessibility gaps for low income families that have disabled children with autism and IDD, etc. And so, what we were doing is we were actually trying to help parents certify themselves to take care of their children and get paid to do that, which was very, very interesting. And so through that process, I was able to interview different families, and I realized my family wasn't the only one that struggled with being South Asian, struggling with intersectionality. There were all of these different families in America as well. So why don't I just continue helping these families? But I can't just say I want to help these families. I have to actually do something about it. And so there I was like, if I can't get these opportunities myself, I'll self learn, I'll self teach myself coding, machine learning, programming, things like that. And so I did. I've built a few machine learning models. I know how to code pretty well. I got interested in design. I've done a few UI UX projects as well. And now I'm like, now I have this education and now I want to distribute it to other people as well.
That's amazing. And so you talk about being self-taught and learning on your own. What were some of the tools that you used to teach yourself?
Yes. So I think instead of just taking information from online, it's really important to put it back out into the public as well with your own spin on it. And so what I did was the first kind of emerging technology I was exposed to was more on the science intersection because I was still, and I still am interested in health. And so I got really deep into longevity research, and that's essentially increasing the health span of a human. And so I read through a lot of different research papers, but the most important tool for me was using Medium, which is a article platform where anyone and everyone could just post their own articles and write them and publish them. And so I wrote a whole bunch of different articles, and from there, opportunities started generating on them by themselves. Because when I did cold outreach to professors working at universities, CEOs of random longevity companies, I gave those articles to them. I was like, I've done this work, I've done this research, and so I'd want to contribute to your work. And there, I was able to involve myself in different companies. And I started off with Code Academy for coding and programming, but what is really helpful is just replicating machine learning algorithms, specifically for AI, because that's where I have experience, just replicating those and then changing different variables and changing different variables and putting your own spin on it, because just learning the content isn't gonna stick. You need to actually recreate that and eventually iterate on your own.
That's I mean, all of that you just said is a ton of advice that we give early career applicants, because they take in the information they learn, and then they don't know how to present it back into the world. And it's I'm very impressed that you've learned this skill through observation, and you know, who was helping you along the way? Like, did you have mentors guiding you, or are you just a natural to absorb as much information as possible and put the pieces together?
Yeah, so I primarily did it on my own, actually. Um, but I did have a few mentors along the way that I got through cold outreach. A lot of people, a lot of people in my network aren't that interested, at least in my community, aren't that interested in kind of carving your own path. It's more of, how do I get through high school so I can get through college so I can get a job and then make money, which is an okay path as well. It's just I'm the path I see for myself isn't along that line. And so I felt like the online community was a lot more welcoming, and that's where I found these mentors, especially through going through those internships. Those people are my best friends right now, and I love those people to death. And one important lesson I learned from this is you can learn content, but it doesn't have to be turned into a company. You can just learn it for the sake of learning and apply that knowledge, and maybe eventually along the way those skills will help you within a company or working in a company.
Yeah, I'm just still in awe. Every time I ask you a question, you answer. I'm just in complete awe, and it's the same reaction I had when we met at Collision, and the conversation that we had at the RBC booth, and it was just like standing there again for an hour, just going back and forth. And it's rare that I meet somebody that I can stand and talk to for an hour, because I'm such an introvert. But it was really, really quite amazing. And you talk, and the skills that you touched on, just being able to continue to learn, to create, to put your projects out there. It's really phenomenal. And then the most important one I think that you mentioned was the cold outreach, not being afraid to cold outreach. And I think it's impressive that at this age you're able to not have that fear of be intimidated to make those cold outreaches. I still feel intimidated when I need to do cold outreach. Ask no foul. That's why he's the person mostly doing that, because it's not my favorite thing to do. Um, yeah, it's a very hard thing to do. So I want to touch on that a little bit, and like how do you psych yourself up to do that, and how did you first start doing that?
Mm-hmm. It required a lot of emails to even get one, of course. I mean, Andy knows as well. I sent him, I think, 10 Discord messages like, hey, do you have a list of questions for today? And like, mainly persistency is honestly key. I remember my first emails were literally essays worth of words to one person. I realized that's probably not the way to go. PhDs do not want to read an essay worth of content from a 10th grader. So, um, my I realized that I couldn't take the next step by myself. Yes, I started by myself, but you can't keep going by yourself. Having these different people with you is so, so important. And that's where that intersectionality with different industries really comes from. And so a lot of my preliminary research just came from searching through research papers online, seeing if I could get their emails. And I started off with just the same templated email. And I realized that is not the way to go at all. You can have some structure that is templated, but there should be sections that are very personal to those people. And so that's where I started getting more responses. But where it really kicked off is when I put my own personality into the emails. I realized a lot of my emails, they sounded very boring and there were no smiley faces anywhere. And so I added smiley faces, I added color bolding and links, which is so, so important. If you can add links to what you're talking about, that's so important. And so in terms of psyching myself up, it wasn't really psyching myself up. It was more like, okay, I need to do this. I'm just going to do it. If it flops, it flops. But I'll do better next time.
That's amazing. I need to take that advice and just do it. Um, I when we met, you were working on a on a new app that you won a hackathon with. That is meant to be kind of a Pride Parade protection tool. So to help attendees at Pride Parades protect themselves and safety, correct? It's all about safety and feeling safe at the Pride Parade. So I would love for you to tell the audience a little bit about what that was like and a little bit about that project.
For sure. So I think back last year, I think exactly a year ago, the DMZ was hosting a hackathon called Hack Against Hate. And I teamed up with Samantha, who was my partner at the time, business partner at the time. And so we essentially looked into the problems. And I was really passionate about bringing hate crimes in the LGBTQ community, specifically because that pertained to me, to light. And she was on board with it. And so what we decided to do was look into specific problems in the community. And I realized a fear for myself. I never have been to a pride parade, mainly because I'm scared of the hate that can occur at pride parades. And I realized that there are many stories of hate crimes happening at a pride parade. And this was very shocking to me. How can a safe space meant for this community be so unsafe? And so I looked into this problem more and I decided to add technology onto it because I love technology. And so basically, we prototyped an app that uses machine learning to kind of map safe zones in partnership with these pride parades and also just distress calling. And so there were different variables put into this algorithm that weighed different factors. And these factors included proximity to different security areas and also just population, because we noticed where there were higher populations, there was a higher prevalence of hate crimes in those areas. And so basically, we worked through that. And then we pitched it out to the DMZ and we ended up winning the hackathon and $5,000. And so we've continued trying to prototype the app, and our next steps going forward are basically to be able to partner with a pride parade to develop the app with them, because me as a sole developer isn't enough to develop something that is really, really interconnected with different pride parades.
That's amazing. So you're kind of at the MVP moment of for this product, and you're looking for partners to help take it to the next level and provide add it into their systems. Correct. Awesome. That's amazing. So if anybody in the audience has connections to Pride organizations in the different cities in Canada, we need to introduce you. Make sure you're connected. And then like that alone is just phenomenal. I see how hard it is to develop technology every day, and I see how hard it is to integrate it, especially when it's working with vulnerable populations or data safety or personal safety. And so, what are some of the things? You mentioned a little bit while you were building the app what you thought about, but are there other things after the hackathon that you've been ruminating on to figure out how to provide that more a safer environment for everyone?
Yes, for sure. We were thinking of going past Pride parades because there's also Pride events. If this app were just to be this one-time thing during the year, that isn't really representative of the Pride that we want to drive throughout the whole community. And so we were looking into just Pride events that happen throughout the year, because there's many that happen in wintertime, August time as well. Data privacy is definitely an issue we've talked over and we're still in talks about. But essentially, it'll just follow the typical location tracking that all of our phones do. And then in terms of data privacy, we're looking into the specifics on the software side right now.
Wonderful. Now, recently, and that's those are already two amazing projects that you've talked about, and experiences that you've gained in the last couple of years. But you're turning your attention to doing good for the community,
Yes.
and your new project is called Codespire. And I'd love for you to tell the audience what this. When I heard about this, I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, sure, of course." But I would love for you to tell the audience a little bit about what you're doing.
Yes. So I think back in March, I wanted to really do something for my community as well, because this was when I started to really internalize that I wasn't the only girl that was sidelined from computer science education and robotics education. There are many more students that are in even more challenging situations that don't have this access simply because of those labels that society has put on them, essentially. And so what I did was I cold outreach. But before that, I just came up with an idea of creating this curriculum and program that specifically targets underprivileged youth around the world. And so, what this program is called is Codespire. And basically, we work in partnership with existing youth organizations and youth homeless shelters to deliver our program in person and online. And this is done through workshops that cover programming, digital design, and digital literacy. And we've also so far partnered with Boys and Girls Club Canada, which is the largest after school program in Canada, as well as Canada Learning Code, which is the largest coding advocacy organization in Canada. And we've reached over 15,000 youth so far. Um, and we're in the process of still developing our curriculum and delivering this content directly to the most vulnerable communities in Toronto. We've partnered specifically in the Jane and Finch area, which I'm sure many of you know of. And what I've noticed is a lot of people are scared to even go in person because of the notorious crime rate. But the thing is, these children and these youth are severely impacted by this because they can't get access to this education. And so what we've done is we've actually gone in person and on the ground to deliver this education. And what we noticed is first initially this program was just for coding and programming, but we noticed that these other skills are also very essential for the future because the future is all code, but these students don't have access to this code. And so in my first workshop with Youth Without Shelter, which is a youth homeless shelter in Etobicoke, I noticed that the students didn't even know how to use Google Docs. And this was a shock to me because that is the new paper. And these students didn't know the paper of the future. So that's kind of where it's gone then. And what we're looking to do in the future in December actually is to host an event for students where they can come in person. And this is open to the public where they can come in person and explore different technologies and talk to industry professionals. So we're working out the details and a location right now as well.
Yes, you move very quickly and you work very hard at what you do. It's like every time I talk to you, it's a new phase of a new project, and it's just phenomenal to see how quickly you're able to progress. Your turn your actions, turn your thoughts into actions. It's really phenomenal to see and quite inspiring. It's this idea of te- creating access to technology is a huge problem that some of the brightest minds have been focusing on in cities like New York and Toronto and Montreal, everywhere, right? There's this digital divide that everybody is trying to address, because you're right, it is technology is the future. And so I'm just going to pause there, let that sink in. Everything that she's working on, that she's done to this point, that she's putting forth into the world. Um, and talk about this event that you're doing in December. We're we're still looking for a venue. Is that right? Okay. So again, if anybody in the audience has a venue that can host about 100 or about 50 students at a time, 100 throughout the day, for a one-day event, December 17th, love to connect you with Harsehaj to make sure that the event has a home. So that's ask number one. Ask number two, again, was connections to pride organizations for testing. Any other things that you need in your journey, or how can our community support you along your journey?
I just really resonate with this whole conference's focus on access to technology because that is such a huge issue. I realized this after I was looking at ML, machine learning, artificial intelligence, I realized, yes, we're making all of these interesting advancements in technology, but that's only serving to widen this gap between those that don't have it and the rich and the wealthy. And so I kind of stepped back from that point and I was like, how do we ensure that every single person on earth can have the same quality of life and the same starting point, which is very, very, very difficult knowing that there's societal barriers. And then how can they get access self-driving vehicles, crypto blockchain technology and things like that. And so my biggest ask is if you work directly with these communities that are severely impacted by accessibility gaps, I'd love to come in and work with them.
Amazing. Now we're gonna have a little bit of fun.
Yes.
I want to know what you do for fun.
Okay.
These are all very serious topics that you're working
I
on.
do have fun.
So, what do you do for fun?
I rollerblade. I love rollerblading. I have been rollerblading since 4th grade, and it is my biggest hobby ever. It's a bit dangerous sometimes, but I love just zipping down my whole neighborhood, blasting music in my ears. It's the best experience ever. So that's what I do. I also eat guacamole with Costco's best tortilla chips. I do.
That's amazing. And then you're 17, you're a senior in high school.
Mhm.
Are you doing all the senior things? Are you avoiding all of the senior things? Are you looking forward to graduating? Tell me a little bit about what that last year experience is for you.
I am looking forward to graduating, getting out of there. But yeah, it's a struggle, obviously, juggling these things. But I think my biggest skill that I've developed over the past 2, 3 years is just prioritization. If I have a mountain of French homework, maybe I don't really need to do that. It's fine if I understand the core concept. Obviously, I'm applying to universities and things like that right now, and I was stressing about it a lot back in March. Honestly, I was killing myself over it, over getting into a good university, over what my future would look like if I didn't get into the most top university in the entire world. But then I soon realized that my education is only what I make out of it. I can make the worst program on earth the best program if it's me.
Such wisdom at such a young age. Right. I wish I had a lot of that insight when I was your age. I'm going to turn it over to the audience, whether online or in person, to see if there's any questions for Harsehaj or anything that you want to learn more about. Excellent. I'm going to run the microphone over to you and just ask it into the microphone.
Thank you. And is the event that you're hosting in December, is it for high school students as well?
Yes, it is specifically targeted actually at high school and middle school students because I've recognized that that demographic specifically never really has access to talking to industry professionals. That's mainly something that comes when you have that high school diploma and when you're in a program like UFT, Waterloo, etc. So it's actually specifically targeted at high school and middle school students.
And any plan, like where would it be hosted?
That is certainly a plan. We are looking for a venue currently, but it would happen in Toronto ideally, and so we're specifically looking at companies that resonate with our mission, that have physical spaces that we can hold in, but that is still TBD.
And also, is it based off of tech?
Yes, it's based off of tech, but not just programming. There's also digital design and digital literacy with some entrepreneurship too.
That's cool. And did you apply to any universities yet?
I haven't applied to any in Canada yet. I still have to submit all of that stuff. I don't even know the specifics, honestly. But I've applied to I think a few schools in the US so far.
All right, you're doing great.
Thanks.
Yeah, and again, I love the point that you're trying to get the students into a company so that they get
Yes.
exposure to what tech companies look like, feel like, and you're breaking down, demystifying
Yes.
the barrier that exists there. So I love that point. Any other questions from the audience or online?
Okay, awesome.
Awesome. So we already have connections happening in the room. Great. Any last questions? One more? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, so you're like super educated and yeah, like I mean energetic and like you do so many cool things. Like where do you get your inspiration from?
Yeah, I think I just really want to help people that are like myself and just improve their quality of life. I think my priorities really shifted in high school. It was more, how can I make a lot of money and make the best money for myself and make a great life for myself? But I realized that money won't make the great life for myself. I really enjoy talking to new people and also helping those people get on an equal bar as everyone else around them. And so my inspiration is just helping people. It's a very generic answer, but I truly really like helping people, but also using my creativity in the ways I help people through innovation and technology.
Can I ask you one? So when you start a business at 16, 17 years of age, um, I I did that back like a zillion years ago also, but I faced a lot of age-based
Yeah.
discrimination from customers, partners. The teachers wouldn't even believe I had a business back then. How do you just, I mean, I do not believe you're 17, but I mean, aside from that, how do you deal with that? And do you have any struggles that you've had to, or hurdles, I should say, that you've had to work your way around, or what's your experience with that?
Yeah, I definitely experienced that initially when I was doing cold outreach. Every time I tried to get a lab position, it was always like, okay, get your undergrad and then come back to us afterwards. Or whether I was pitching a business idea, it was like, okay, get your undergrad, then come back afterwards. I faced that a lot. I think the most pivotal moment was when I got that internship at a health tech startup. And that's not easy to just say, go get an internship that accepts you, but it's really not necessarily internship, but the founder of that company. And I was able to make that really personal connection with her. And she realized that a high school diploma isn't necessary to understand someone's potential. And just that one person made so much possible for me and has unlocked all these opportunities for me as well.
That's so phenomenal. And again, I am so excited to be connected and to follow your journey as you grow, continue to grow and build and thrive. I know you have great things in your future. It's really phenomenal to, again, just to be inspired by you every time we talk. It's tremendous. So with that, I think we're going to end the conversation. Let everybody,
Thank you.
yes, connect. Please come and connect and enjoy the rest of the lunch break, and we'll